Christian parenting.
Hello and welcome to the Growing Connected podcast. My name is Amy Ulrich and I'm here with my husband Jeffrey Ulrich. Jeffrey is a child psychologist and we are parents and authors, and together we've written the book The 6 Needs of Every Child, Empowering Parents and Kids Through the Science of Connection.
In my work as a therapist, I see both the joy and the pain families experience in their journey together. We all feel stuck and disconnected at times. So each week we'll consider a question from a parent or a child who needs support.
Today's question comes from a mom in Virginia. She writes, "My 7-year-old son has started saying things like, 'I hate you' and 'I wish I was dead' when he is angry and upset. His rage escalates so quickly. I guess I'm both fearful for him and honestly frustrated by his outbursts. Bad interactions with him drain all of my energy and upset his 2 siblings. I'm worried this behavior will get worse over time and that he will grow up to be someone who can't control his emotions. When do I need to worry that he'll actually hurt himself or others? And what can I do to help him? And all of us?"
Yeah, so this is a great question because it's such a common one. I don't know whether a lot of parents faced with this situation feel like, oh my gosh, something's wrong with my kid. How unusual is this? And it's not uncommon. I see it all the time working with clients and talking with parents. And I think we're ashamed of it very often. And what's really wonderful about this question is that this mom is able to name her reaction to her son's behavior. She's aware of what's going on inside of her and her fear about what this might mean and where this might go. And just being able to do that is so important to becoming a wiser parent.
Yeah, often when I am really struggling with something with the kids, you'll say to me, "What are you scared of?" That's almost always your first question. What are you scared of? And I've heard you say that to your clients too, because it's crazy how quickly our brains go to fear and we don't even realize that we're reacting because we have some vision in the future, some horrible certainty that whatever we're seeing right in front of us is saying is going to happen. And I think, at least I'll just speak for myself, I see the kids doing something, I have so many fears about what that means for who they're going to become that I can't actually really address what I'm seeing right in front of me because my brain is so stuck in the fear of what could be.
Right, we get hijacked. And the thing about it is that question often stumps parents because we're often not aware of what we are afraid of exactly. We have to take a moment to really unpack that because fear sits in a part of our brain that's it's visceral. It's pre-language. Certainly we can feed it with our thoughts, and some of us are very aware of futures for our children that we want to avoid. But very often those fears are just like an anticipation. It's visceral, and I don't know exactly where it's coming from or where I'm anticipating this is going, but it's there. And then the second question, once you've sort of acknowledged that we are driven by these very basic emotions, is to say, well, whatever that is, whatever words I can put to that or picture I can put to where this leads in my worst case scenario in my mind, is it realistic? Sometimes there is some realism to the fear. Sometimes it's not so realistic, and we have to dig in there.
The question of whether or not a fear is realistic, some of our fears really are. But I notice in myself, if one of our kids in particular, we've dealt with something like this in our own family, and one of the boys really would have very reactive episodes, and I was always scared of the rage, and it would make me think about some hard things that some of my family members dealt with. And so I was carrying that fear, and it was one of these things like, is it realistic? Yes. I mean, there is some realistic aspect to my fear because I have seen how in my family sometimes this rage does go unchecked and it can really hurt him and other people. But is it necessarily true that will happen? No.
Yeah. And in this mom's case, just even asking the question or raising the issue probably means that any fear she has that this is going to turn out really badly for her son 5-10 years from now is probably low. because she's aware and she wants to engage with the problem productively. And she's probably recognizing I'm not being terrible, or I don't feel like I'm being terribly productive. Those cases where we're not aware, where you have a child in a home where there's a highly reactive adult, piggybacking on that highly reactive child, that's the child who's in act and has realistic dangers of evolving into an adult whose emotional life is really stormy and really problematic for themselves and for others. I'm assuming that's not the case in this listener's case, but even in that case where you're not unaware of your own emotional life, you have some inhibition of that highly reactive response to your kids, there still are important things that are going to help this kiddo along and would help any of our kiddos along. And I want to talk about some of those things.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that has helped me the most with the kids is the long view of parenting. First of all, that you'll hear us talk about so much, which is that whatever we're experiencing in this moment is just a bit of this long journey that we're on with their kids, and they're always growing and developing, and their brains just have so much stretching to do. So if we can allow ourselves to understand that this is a moment and it's not your child's forever, whatever your experience, no matter how hard it is, does not mean that this is there forever. And then something so helpful for me is to realize that kids just don't have the vocabulary that we think they do to articulate exactly what they mean, or the maturity to understand what we're hearing when they say these words. So they say, I hate you. I'm not trying to diminish how those words feel, but I just want to say that the kids don't always know exactly what those words mean to us. So that's where I think we start to go through these different steps that Jeffrey, you put together.
Yeah. So let's talk about those. So really, this listener has identified a pattern. This wasn't a one-off. This has happened more than once, and it's not getting better in some meaningful sense, and she's probably recognized situations where this is arising. And really the first step is to name that with your kid, but particularly in a moment of low stress. Having a conversation about this pattern of reactivity in the middle of it will almost never work, because your kid's brain in those moments of being really emotionally aroused cannot process language, cannot see at the forest level. He's stuck in the trees. He's stuck at that level of being emotionally upset. So first step is always find a time when you're relaxed. With really all of our boys, boys seem to be really open to this in particular, taking walks where there's not that over-arousing face-to-face, we're talking about a problem. It can be really effective. But it's just whatever works for your kid, finding a time, hey, I've noticed something. We need to talk about it because I'm worried for you and I'm worried for our family about how this is repeating itself. So that's absolutely step one.
And I would say about that too, we found that one of our kids in particular, they can be so affected by whether they've eaten or whether they've gotten enough sleep. So calm, yes, and then also have they had protein? Have they had sleep? Are they in a place where this is not going to, you can raise an issue and it's not going to spiral down really quickly? And you'll know your own kid and what moments might be. It might be right when they wake up in the morning and you can snuggle in next to him, or before going to bed at night. I mean, that's where we have to get wise and curious about what are the times that are most possible for connection with our kids.
Right. So, okay, you've decided, all right, I'm picking a time, we're going to go for a walk. Say, son, we need to talk about something. Notice this situation where when you are really disappointed or something is not going your way, whatever the flashpoint is, you seem to really react to those situations in a really big way. So using language our kids can understand and describing specifically what you see and what that's like for you, what you think or guessing what that is like for them or what's going on for them. This is really an invitation to sort of get into each other's mind about those moments, to learn. We talk in our book, and it's a theme really throughout Growing Connected philosophy, is this attitude of curiosity, that we approach ourselves, our children, this life, spiritually, physically, with curiosity. We are blind to much in this world, and it causes us trouble to take the time to pause, to breathe, to pray, to invite the Spirit, and to invite a conversation without having the answers loaded up ahead of time, like we know. So much, I think our children, you can talk to this, have surprised us. We thought we knew what was going on, and then we found out something was, whoa, did not realize that was going on in there.
Right. So just making space to listen to them, and just to echo that. I mean, there's freedom in not having to know all the answers.
Yes.
There's really freedom in saying this is a relationship that we're in, and I really want to understand because I want to help you because I love you so much. So this is hard for me. It's hard for you. Another thing that I've taken to do in the kids when they're expressing these big, big, hard emotions is in my own head. I become a translator myself. And so they may be saying something that's hard for me to hear. And if they seem to be kind of spiraling out past the point of being rational, then I try to translate that to I'm in pain, right? So here's this little person in front of me who is in pain. And then when we enter into that conversation that Jeffrey's talking about, then I can say, it really feels to me like you're in pain and I want to help you here.
Yeah. And with the littler kids, although this can certainly be true for the older ones too, you ask those questions, you begin to get curious, and they may not have any good answers. They may give you shrugs of the shoulder. They don't know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, because in how you approach that with curiosity and openness, you are modeling a process. And this is a process that you're going to want to follow, put on repeat cycle, and your children will get used to this process. They will become self-reflective because they're anticipating the question, what do you think was going on inside of you and in others around you that was at the nexus of this flashpoint? So whatever you get from your kids in this conversation, you want to be able to come out of it being able to anticipate future potential flashpoints. That could be, in psychological terms, we talk about triggers, but that could just be times of the day. You mentioned I think one or two of our boys after school haven't eaten, no protein. That was a flashpoint because their brains were simply starved.
Yeah.
And you had learned to we weren't even talking. You were handing them a bar before
cashews, sandwich, something. Yeah.
So that was anticipating flashpoints. So we take what we get, we can anticipate them. And you're not going to be able to anticipate every flashpoint, of course, but you're beginning to develop a map of your child's mind and how it works and where it falls over. You're not going to be able to avoid all of them. The next main point is creating options that you expect you and your child to engage with when that flashpoint comes along, as it will. And generally, there's kind of two categories of options we want to give our kids. One is we want to give them the option to use us as that moment is coming forward for them. Whatever it is, they are frustrated, it didn't happen, things didn't happen the way they wanted, they got hurt. Some kids just are really reactive to physical pain. And we want to remind them they can use us to help regulate that intense emotion. Just asking, do you need a hug right now? Instead of jumping into what's going on or why are you upset or why you're reacting, just say, do you need a hug? And this is comfort. So we need to talk about comfort and what that is. It's one of the really most important 6 needs.
Right. So when our kids are in pain, what we tend to want to do is to rush through it, make it stop, tamp it down, whatever. We tend to bring our own experiences of how we were raised, whether or not we want to or not, we bring them into our interactions with our kiddos. But what's interesting about when there are these really negative moments, it is such a universal human thing to just want to make them pass quickly. And so we want to get our kids either calm or happy or away from us. If we're really triggered, then we just want to do something to power up and make it shut down. But it's this kind of universal feeling of want it to stop. And so it's teaching yourself in that moment, when my child is just falling apart, that you are the stronger, wiser adult who has more experience, and you are strong enough to stand in that place and not be just buffeted by the waves of whatever emotion is going on in this little person. And that's when we can offer comfort just by being there. We might say to a kid, do you want a hug? And that might be the last thing that they want. But if you stay present with them, if it becomes too uncomfortable, if the rage is too much in the living room and the other kids are upset, we totally understand that. You can say even something like, you know what, I understand that you're having this big feeling right now, and it is okay to be mad. It's not okay to be ugly or really mean with your anger. So why don't you just hop into your room for a minute and just get your anger out. It's okay. You can come back anytime. I'm here. I'm going to sit right here and I'm going to be waiting for you, where we're all going to be here ready for you to come back. That's comfort. That's saying, this is how you're feeling. We see that. We're not telling you to shut it down. We are here, right? But it's also putting up some boundaries to say what is going to be okay within the system that you have going in your home.
Yeah, every kid's going to be different. And some kids really are going to take advantage of that opportunity to just switch gears and use us to help them with a big emotion in whatever way. And some of our kids are going to be like, I don't want to have anything to do with you or anybody else. And the question is, well, that's fine, but what does that look like for us? And I need to make sure that that's safe for you and safe for others. And that your big emotions also don't spill over to the rest of our family in ways that create ripple effects. And this mom in her questions bringing up that issue. I've got other kiddos here, and these big outbursts create these ripple effects that we all have to deal with. So chatting with parents, I will say, if there's a pathway knowing your kid that you can reach out and sort of pull them from the brink as they become more aware of this moment that is hard for them, then find that thing and give them that option. If they're not able to take it, that's okay too. Give them an option that allows them to have their big emotion, but in a way that doesn't blow up the rest of the family. That could be taking 3 walks around the house, or if you're out in public, around the park area, you're keeping an eye on them, go over to the swings, I will stay over here. In the house, it might be, why don't you go to your room? That's not as punishment, but that's your space. I'm not going to let you blow up the room either. So it's, again, boundaries within that this is okay to have these big feelings. You're safe. We're safe. We will still going to get through it together. I'm not casting you away. You're making that choice. That's where the choice really matters. It's giving your child autonomy. Like, I am going to figure out how to get through this best with your help.
That's right. And just articulating through it all, we are here. I'm not going anywhere. I love you. A child screaming, I hate you at you is a very intense feeling. And so to be able, it takes strength, but to be able to say, it is so normal to be angry at each other. It is so normal. People get mad at each other all the time. We still love each other. What is the line that you're going to work to say and then be quiet? When kiddos are really, really dysregulated like that, the fewer words, the better. So something to say, I'm not going anywhere. I love you. I am here. And then try to go to a different place inside of yourself. This is the place where I will call out to God when there's those really hard parenting moments. Say, this is where I need help. It's inviting the Spirit, inviting presence, and asking God to come and help in those moments when it's just beyond me. And really believing that there is love that is present in our home even when we can't feel it, and that there is direction and possibility to pull us to deeper wisdom than we even have access to ourselves.
And sometimes Jesus looks like your partner, right? I mean, the number of times I've had to hand off to you because I could not get into that space where I wasn't being pulled in by those really scary, difficult to hear words and emotions. And they're not all parents have that option. We recognize that, and that's an even deeper call to invite God, whose heart is turned toward the parent, and how hard this work is. I think another bit, being able to let go the immediate reaction. A lot of parents feel this in that moment, intensity. I need to deal with this. I need to get some things straight because you see it in front of you and it seems so clear. And so the last piece is making sure that your child understands when this emotional wave passes, there is going to be a moment where we debrief what was going on. And that debrief is meant to reestablish reconnection and reintegrate back into the family. So often many of us have grown up in homes when there was a high expressed emotion person in the home, and that person would go off, and then people would freeze or go off. And then it was like nothing happened. Like the person would come back and like nobody talked about it and you just kind of went on your business. And that's not good. It's not good for the person. It's not good for us. So, when we set this up with kids who have this struggle, we always say, after your big emotions come down, we're going to reconnect and we're going to figure out what was going on. We're going to learn from it. We're going to remember who we are. And this is equipping, and comfort moves into equipping once comfort has had its moment to work. Mm-hmm. And comfort doesn't need to be this long, intense thing. It's just bringing down that temperature enough that your child can think again. And that means being able to hear whatever it is you have to say. And it means being able to be curious with you. And that goes for you too, because if your mind is all worked up, you're not going to be able to be curious and think and really figure out what happened here, what could we have done differently, what do we need to do different next time. And one last bit about that is our children do not understand their own minds, much less the minds of others. And as adults, we maybe have a little better handle on our own minds of what makes us tick. What are the thoughts that drive our reactions? What are the kind of disappointments or frustrations that send us over our own edges? The stories we tell ourselves about what happens. And when we debrief with our kids, we are filling in a map for them. We always want to ask, what was the feeling there? What was anger is a surface emotion. It is hiding some other emotion almost always. Or even if it's really sitting in that anger category, what's the shade of it? Is it frustration anger? Is it disappointment anger? Is it jealousy? Naming those things is helpful for our kids to understand better what's going on inside of them and what to do with it. And then what are we telling ourselves? When those moments come to us, what's the story we're telling? Once we know what the story is, then we can investigate whether that story is really accurate. If your kid thinks you were mad at them, and you weren't mad at all, but I know our kids will read into our tone, our answers. It means something more than what we meant when we said it. And suddenly they're going off and you're like, what just happened there? Mm-hmm. And that debrief allows us to say, what did you think, Mom and Dad, what are you taking away from when I said we can't do that? Was it we can't ever do that? We can't ever play that game? No, we just can't do it right now, but I didn't finish my thought. And so it's really misunderstanding what's going on inside. So that helps us feel more understood in both directions. It helps them understand themselves. And over time, that builds an ability to get through the situation without the big blow up. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's a process we come back to over and over again.
I just hear the exhaustion in this mom's letter, and I just want to say that I see that and hear it, and these are exhausting things, right? Mm-hmm. And to go back to that temptation that we have sometimes to just power up and shut it down, and to say that having these conversations, taking the time to do these things over time, I promise you, will make it so much better and avoid some of those things that we fear happening in the future. We are actually training their brains to learn how to calm down and connect with other people through us. And so, yes to all of these things. Also, yes to the exhaustion. I really appreciate what you said, Jeffrey, in the beginning. This is not an abnormal problem. We don't talk about how hard things feel sometimes, but so many of us feel like things are really hard sometimes.
And one last bit about this, almost without fail, when I see parents with a kid like this, the 0 to 60 kid, who's doing or saying things in that intense emotion that are really either scary or aggressive verbally or otherwise. It really paints a picture of a kid who, in our minds, is insensitive. But in fact, those kids are usually the most tender-hearted kids. It's that tender heart that makes the world so prickly to them, so hard to accept as it is. And life is hard. It doesn't go the way you want it to go. Recognizing that if you can allow yourself the time to have this process of saying, okay, you lost your marbles. We need to work on this for your sake and ours. That those kids over time are the kids who are able to reach out to others in their sensitivity and really are the beautiful ones, right? We start off thinking they're the ones who are going to be the scary ones, and they end up being the beautiful ones because of that tender heart. But we have to take gentle care of that. And it's work. And it is work, and it's exhausting work. But I've certainly seen, I practice with some of our own children, the fruit of just keep at it. We have a process we got to follow. We're not going to ignore it. We're not going to pretend it didn't happen. We are going to figure out what's the map, how this affects you, how it affects us, what we can learn from it, and figure out a different way to do it. It bears fruit with time.
That's right. And acknowledging your own tiredness and how easy it is to kind of shut our hearts down to kids and to feel resentful to them can keep us from grabbing small moments to delight in them when things are calm, because we just feel kind of mad at them for making life so hard.
Yeah.
And so, but it's remarkable how much difficult behavior can be turned around if we start to look for moments to connect with love when things are going well or well-ish. Hugs, smiles, kisses. Why don't we go throw a frisbee? I like being with you. I'm so glad you're in our family. These kids just eat up that kind of positive feedback. And again, I think sometimes you have to, especially when things are hard, be very conscious to make that choice to do that.
Yeah, because I think for most of these kids, they carry around a lot of shame. They're aware that it's affecting others. They carry that around, that something is wrong with them. They are making people miserable. And there's an insecurity there. Where do I stand? And what makes it hard is there's some truth to that, right? Doing that hard work with a kid whose emotions are so big and have such big ripples is tiring. You can't hide the tired often. But it's not about being able to wear a mask at all times about the reality of parenting through hard things. It's about when the moment passes, coming back and saying, despite that moment where mom or dad was cranky, irritable, tired, in this moment now, I see you and I love you and I am glad I am here with you.
Yeah.
That resets us, and that's grace. That's the grace. For me, that's who Jesus represents in our life. 70 times 7, where we forgive each other for our trespasses. We are trespassing all over each other all the time in really difficult ways.
Especially in our families.
That's right. And so that's what it looks like to me in a family, is to say, despite all that's happened, I am still here, and I'm still glad you are here with me. Yeah.
That's right.
We want this time together to be a place where we can consider hard things and also share moments of joy. In our book, we talk about God moments. Times when parents and kids have experienced God's love and presence carrying them through in very specific and sometimes inexplicable ways. We believe that sharing these stories together and with our kids is a great way to connect us to each other and to God, and point us all to love. I've invited my friend Tony Whedon to share a God moment with us today. Tony and I met years ago when we were working on a project to support Syrian refugees, and he's now working to develop a social media platform called Base Connect, which connects military members and military families. He's a pretty incredible guy. Tony and I have stayed in touch and become dear friends over the years, so I felt pretty sure he'd have a story to share with us today.
Yes, Amy, I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me out. When you mentioned this, the story that, it instantly came on my heart was, it's been about 5 years ago. I have this prayer journal, and I had had it for about 7 or 8 years. A friend had challenged me to start writing prayers down, and I write very kind of specific prayers. And so I'd had it at this point, 5, 6, 7 years. It's about 2-3 inches thick. And I realized this morning, it was really early, 3:33 in the morning. I remember it was very specific. And this very specific person came on my heart. And so I wrote down a prayer for this person. And then I realized this was the very last page of this journal. I'm specifically praying for this person, but I realized I'm on the very last page. And so then my prayers became just like, thank you, God, for all these answered prayers. Because I would go back and put stars next to the ones that were answered. And I was going back and reading all these stars. And then I write a little paragraph. So I always leave a little information below so I can say how God answered the prayers. And sometimes they're no, right? Sometimes his answer is no. But I began having this kind of conversation with God, and just like, wow, I guess it looks like I'm gonna need a new prayer journal. This thing is so full of all these amazing prayers, and just it became kind of a gratefulness and thankfulness. Well, we ended up getting a phone call. You totally understand this, having kids, maybe running a little bit late for worship on Sunday morning, and we were going to be about 10 minutes late. And I don't like being late, but I knew we were going to walk in late. And as we're getting in the car, just about to leave, we get a phone call from a friend. They're like, hey, do you want to come visit our church today? Like, there's some guest speaker, there's something going on, I don't remember. And we were like, well, what time does it start? And it was like 11, and ours started at like 10:30. And it's like 10:40. We're like, we're going to be early. It's like, yeah, we'll come and visit. There was a couple things that just really stuck out while we were there. But one of the things that they had, I wanted to go sign up. They had like an email list. And I was like, I love the sermon. I really want to go sign up for their emails. So I went to the front desk and I just said, hey, this is our first time here. I really want to sign up for your emails. Like, do I go to your website? Do you have something to fill out, a card? And she's like, oh, this is your first time here. Like, here, let me get your name and address, and we kind of send you like a gift in the mail. And I was like, oh, no, you don't have to give me anything. And she's like, well, here, at least let me give you what we give any new visitor. And I was like, seriously, you don't have to give me anything. And then she just goes, well, here's a prayer journal. And like, she just gives me this journal. My first time there, they'd never met me, have no clue what had happened that morning. You're talking like 7-8 years I've been writing this thing, and I lost it. I just started crying, and she's like, I'm so sorry. I was like, no. I was like, hold on. And like, I had to like it took me a while to get my composure. My buddy is standing right there. He has no clue what's going on. And then I had to tell them, like, this might seem little to you, like a little thing, but it's 3:33 in the morning, and I'm praying specifically about a friend, and I realize I'm on the very last page of this journal, and there's no more room for me to write. And I was literally talking to God about, it looks like I'm gonna need to go get a new journal. But he cares about the little things in our lives, and he showed up today for me here at this place I've never been, and you just happen to give out journals to brand new people, and I just happen to come back here, And I was like, God, that was like a big hug for me. It was so personal. It was so intimate. It was so just for me and no one else. And so that was kind of a God moment. And that journal is full of many things like that, but that's about the journal. So it's kind of a neat God story that happened to me.
I love that so much, and such an encouragement to keep praying and keep going. Even when the answers are no, we just see God working over and over again. Thanks so much, Tony.
You're welcome. Thank you for letting me share.
We've heard of and experienced many moments like this over the years. God moments when unexpected love and wisdom enter in to transform even our toughest experiences. Now, these moments don't fix every problem or make all our pain go away, but we found them to be tangible reminders of God's love for us. We know this same love is present for you too. Even if, and sometimes especially if, you're struggling and everything feels like a mess, we believe love is there with you to help carry you through. If you have a question to ask or a moment like this you'd like to share, please visit our website at growingconnected.com and click on the podcast link to send it in to us. We're also creating a private community page on our site, so if you'd like to join the conversation about the question we shared today and other issues parents are facing, visit the community link on growingconnected.com to join us. And now, may the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, find you and hold you today. May you be strengthened and encouraged in ways that surprise you, and may you and your family experience moments of joy. We're glad you've been here with us, and we look forward to connecting again soon.